Is this the ending that we all deserved? Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Today we are going to review The Other Black Girl, the TV series versus the book. Let's get into it. So for those of you not familiar, I do have a complete book review up on the channel, so I won't spend too much time rehashing that. But The Other Black Girl is a book that deals with our main protagonist, Nella, who works at this publishing company, who is tired of being the only person of color there. And eventually she does get another person of color, another black girl, the other black girl, working with her at the publishing agency. But all is not what it seems to be initially. The girl Hazel is seemingly the ops, is doing suspicious things, is probably part of a larger network that is using hair grease to force black women into complacency. Though they are achieving great things, they are less susceptible to the pain of racism and oppression and inequality that they have to deal with on a regular in the workforce. And Hazel is hoping that Nella will be her newest recruit. At the end of the book, we actually do find that Nella took the hair grease. But we don't get a clear ending as to what happened to her. In the book, we get more of a clear ending of what happens to Nella after that contentious moment with Hazel. So what I want to do is talk about what's the similarities to the book, what are the differences to the book, and which do I actually prefer? Or was the series even any good? I didn't give the book the highest of marks. So I went into the series with no expectations, which was different than another series that we shall not name. Let's start with the differences. So when the series opened, we do have someone leaving Wagner. And that someone is Kendra Ray Phillips, who is an editor that Nella really looks up to. She was the editor for her all-time favorite book, and she has essentially modeled her entire career off of trying to be the next black editor at this same company, Wagner Books. So we see her on the train. The difference is we don't see her on an Amtrak train. We see her on just like the regular New York Metro train escaping. So that is similar to the book, but obviously in the book she leaves the city, whereas in the series she's limited to the 5 boroughs. So another difference between the series and the book is that in the series we don't get as much of the background as why Nella is so desperate to have another person of color. And the fact in the series, they more so emphasize the Asian character who was there. In the book, she's already a past tense. But in the series, we get to see her preparing to leave. And so we don't get the same lapse in time of like Nella really being at Wagner, the only person of color by herself, and the struggles that she has to go through because of it. Another big difference was a major scene in the book and in the series, because it shapes so much of Nella's trajectory at her job, is that in the series, the editor doesn't allow her to tell her the characters that she has with this book, Chartricia. And Chartricia is written by one of the Wagner's biggest selling writer. They actually give him much more of a bigger role in the series than he has in the movie. But in the series than he has in the book. But in the book, he is douchey, but he's more douchey in the series. They dramatize it for TV, obviously. But also in the book, Nella doesn't get to tell the editor her issues before she talks to the writer. In the series, it's much more of her having an act of defiance by listening to Hazel and still choosing to tell her issues to the author, even though the senior editor has advised her not to. Also, a big difference was how much of Diana and Richard we get in the series versus the book. The characters are shifted a bit. In the book, we really only get one chapter where we get into Diana's thoughts. Diana is the woman who wrote the book Burning Heart, which was edited by her friend Kendra Ray Phillips. And so here we get to actually see her and the dynamic between her and Richard. And it seems as if she actually has a lot more power and influence than she did in the book. It was very interesting. I also liked the actress who played Diana. I think she did a good job. I don't have actually any issues with any of the casting here. Another big difference, I do feel like there are a lot more spookier elements in the movie than in the book. And it's almost as if Kendra Ray Phillips is a ghost. It's not clear if she's alive or dead. And I guess that's the way they wanted to emphasize that in the series, because they don't have the opportunity like so many of us. Like, I guess they don't have the same opportunity as the book to really expound and write that and have you feel those emotions. So they use lighting in the series to depict that. Or just when really suspicious things were happening, like the light would flick, as in suspicious, pay attention, which was interesting. I didn't hate it. I did feel as if the storyline was way different from the book than the movie. So much changes. Hazel is like a completely different character. Certain elements are the same, but she even has more of a background than she does in the book. And so that was interesting as well. We get to see more so how she came into this organization, what it means to her, why it matters to her. And we don't really get that in the book. So that was interesting for sure. And I wasn't mad at it. Oh, also, again, back to Diana, her being just like the mastermind was a big shift. In the book, it was more so like Diana was a part of it, but it was also like Diana had just chosen the easier route. She said for herself that she wanted to remain well-fed, whereas in the series, it's kind of like this is her brainchild and she's the evil genius behind all of it, even controlling Richard, which was different. Also, I like Kendra Ray Phillips a lot less in the series than in the book. Not the actress, but just the storyline, the limited amount of time that she got. I really wasn't feeling it. So that was a difference, because I feel like in the book, she really gets a hero's writing. Though her choices in the end are still questionable, but it's more of a hero's journey than in the series. It's as if she's just running scared. Similarities, I said that the book and the series feel similar, even though the storylines are different. You still have that like underlying thriller aspect of what's going on and who is actually the villain here and who's the victim, and those lines become more blurred. Again, Hazel was suspicious and she was straddling both sides of the fence. So that was consistent. Even though in the series, I feel like she was more of an earnest character, whereas in the book, she was definitely more villainous. Malika was also way more abrasive in the series than in the book, but it was understandable. But I didn't really like it at first. She really had to grow on me. That was one character, I guess, that like graded on like a lot. Like she had to grow on me, because I was like, she doing a lot. Also, Nella's boyfriend, he had to grow on me as well. I didn't love it, but I was indifferent to him, honestly. But I didn't hate it. I feel like in the book, I was more so suspicious of him, but in the series, he seemed innocent. A big similarity that annoyed me in the series and the book is that Nella has a bad habit of letting people play in her face and being naive in the wrong moments. That bothered me a lot in both places. I do feel like there's an underlying like kind of attack on Black sisterhood, in the sense that two things are happening here. One is almost like you're pushing for Black sisterhood. It's like, I want to make this easier for you. Be my sister, be with me. But it's also as if you can't trust it, because there's a degree of manipulation there. And so depending on how you look at it, I feel like there's an argument to be made that like it's almost like an attack on Black sisterhood. Like, does it really exist? There's more to unpack there. I'm still fleshing out the idea, but there's definitely more to unpack there, because I have mixed feelings about it, honestly. Maybe another video. And then the last similarity that I still think is weird is the hair grease situation. Like, I get it, again, going back to perms and the manipulation and the desire to like be more palatable, more acceptable. But it was still weird. Like, it still wasn't a hard sell. I don't know what they could have done for that to have made more sense to me, but it still seemed cheesy to me and a little strange. But I get the argument as well. As like, people always talk about how important hair is to Black women. So I didn't love it though. It just felt lackluster to me in both the series and the book. But one thing that I could say that was satisfying to me was the ending of the series. I preferred it way more to the book. In the series, spoiler alert, in the series, Nella just pretends to be a part of it, pretends that she's using the hair grease, pretends that she's actually conformed. And it's actually more of a spook who's set by the door, as in she's trying to take down the house from inside, learning how it works and dismantling from within. And I found that much more satisfying. I did. I felt like that was more of the ending that we deserved. And I appreciated that a lot more. I won't lie. I found it just way more satisfying than the book. And so I do think that was more the ending that we deserved, and I wish that the book would have had something similar, but it didn't. Overall, I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed the series probably more than the book, honestly, which surprised me. If you're a fan of the channel, you know I rarely say such a thing. But I feel as if the series on its own could just stand, even without the book. So if you haven't read the book, I think you could still check out the series. I enjoyed it and would recommend it. Obviously not the greatest TV I've ever watched, but I was entertained. So I definitely say check it out. More book reviews to come. I have my February TBR video up on the channel, so definitely check that out. As always, I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. And until the next one, please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace. O dabo. Adios. Ciao.